Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parents. In today's episode, this is how you deal with an EM. Speak another language. I never get my weekend time for myself. Entitled parent thinks her kids deserve the playground and gets mad when we don't cooperate. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. This is how you deal with an EM. Speak another language. I always thought these crazy people who don't mind their own business must be a rare breed and that I would never encounter one of them, but somehow I did. So a little bit of background before I start. I was born in Pakistan, but came to Canada when I was 3. But by that time, I could already speak in Urdu, Punjabi and Hindi. The languages are fairly similar in many regards. And then I came to Canada and English was my 4th language. As I grew up, I also learned Arabic, French and Japanese to varying competencies, but all within the realm of conversational. Having grown up in Canada, I have no accent when I speak in English, so you wouldn't be able to tell me apart from a Caucasian person if you spoke with me over the phone. But also, having learned so many languages, I'm able to pronounce a lot of sounds fairly accurately, so I sound authentic in all languages that I speak in to all but native speakers. Most of the languages that I know sound different enough from each other that someone that doesn't know them can still tell that the language is different. I've traveled back home to Pakistan a few times, and I would always encounter those beggars who come with elaborate stories. Like, my wife is sick and she needs surgery, and I managed to get money for that, but I need money for the flight to reach her, etc. I came up with a fun counter to that, which was that I would act like I didn't understand them at all and would start speaking in a different language that they wouldn't know. Japanese was my go-to language while in Pakistan. The reaction those people would have was quite hilarious. As per apparently new rules, instead of acronyms, I'll use fake names. I'll keep them all 5-letter names so the columns line up decently enough. So anyway, onto my story now. The cast. Karen, the star of the show. Jimmy, Karen's husband, and a decent human being. Zarif, me. Wifey, my wife. Singh, restaurant manager. So my wife and I were at an Indian restaurant in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, enjoying our dinner and having a conversation. We speak in a mix of Urdu and English, just mixing with whatever feels easy. To someone listening in, they would be able to understand enough to figure out what we are talking about in most cases. We were sitting in a booth table, so it was only open from one side. Karen and her family, Jimmy and her 2 daughters that looked like they were in their early teens, were sitting at an open table with an empty table between us. My wife is Pakistani like me, and what some Pakistanis like to do is eat rice with their hands. I prefer a spoon myself, but at this time my wife was eating with her hands. Apparently, this Karen got offended at seeing my wife eat with her hands. When she came over, I started speaking in different languages, acting like I didn't understand what she was saying in English. I'll translate what I said and put in parentheses which language I said it in. Here's how it went. Karen walks over to our table with a sour expression on her face. Jimmy calls to her telling her to sit back down and leave us alone, but she ignored him. She addresses my wife directly. Karen, what's wrong with you? Can't you eat your food in a civilized manner like the rest of us? Zarif, or do, huh? What do you want? Can't you see we're eating? Karen looks at me with surprise. Karen, what did you just say? Zarif, or do, to wifey, don't talk to her in English, just do what I'm doing. Zarif, or do, to Karen, you're just a crazy woman, go sit back down. Karen, why aren't you speaking in English? My wife starts smiling and I try hard to keep a straight face. Wifey, or do, we are just enjoying our meal, why don't you go and sit down? Karen, I just heard you speaking in English, I know you can talk in English. Zarif, or do, yeah, I can but I choose to not do so. Wifey, or do, to Zarif, I think she's getting upset. Zarif, or do, to wifey, I know, that's what makes this so much fun. Karen, stop it. Talk in English like I heard you before. Zarif, Japanese, so you were listening in on our conversation? Don't you have any manners? Karen, wait, that's some other language now. What the hell is this? Jimmy, leave them alone, Karen, they don't speak English. Karen, I know they do. They're just pretending not to. Jimmy, it doesn't matter, just sit down. I start waving toward her table. Zarif, Japanese, that's right, go back to your table, you loud cow. Jimmy, Karen, they aren't doing anything wrong. Leave them alone. Karen, she's eating with her hands. I can't let the girls learn her uncivilized ways. Zarif, Hindi, to wifey, start licking your fingers. My wife starts licking the rice on her right hand off the top parts of her fingers, and that makes Karen rage even more. Karen, oh my god. Look at how gross she is being. Jimmy, stop looking at her if you don't like it then. Zarif, Arabic, hey you dumb, do you behave this way everywhere you go? Karen, he changed languages again. I know he did. His accent changed. Zarif, Japanese, yep, and I can keep changing. Karen, speak in English. Jimmy, you must have heard them wrong. They don't know English. Leave them alone. Karen, then why are they living here? They don't deserve to live here if they don't know English. I was having a hard time keeping a straight face, so I disguised it by raising my voice and appearing angry. I gestured towards her and then pointed at her table. Zarif, Arabic, are you so dumb you can't even listen to your husband? Go sit down and stop embarrassing yourself. Karen, you don't deserve to be here. Get out. At this point, the restaurant's manager Singh shows up to see what all the commotion was about. He's an Indian guy with a pretty heavy accent when he spoke in English, so I knew he'd speak either Hindi or Punjabi. Singh, excuse me, can you please keep your voice down? What is going on here? Karen, this woman is eating with her hands and it's disgusting. She's corrupting my children with her barbaric ways. Singh, ma'am, there are no rules that forbid her from eating with her hands. Please leave them alone or I'll have to ask you to leave. Now Jimmy gets up and comes over to where Karen is. Jimmy, sit down, Karen, you've embarrassed yourself enough. This is why I can't take you anywhere. Zarif, Punjabi, ignore this dumb cow, her brain is smaller than a laddo, an Indian sweet. The manager starts laughing at my comment and Karen gets even redder in the face since she thinks we're making fun of her. Karen, all of you should go back to your country. Jimmy just takes her arm and leads her back to their table and sits her down, telling her to shut up. Her daughters look like they want to sink into the floor from embarrassment. I ramble a few more sentences in varying languages as a kind of venting before my wife tells me to just leave it alone. We finish our dinner about 10 minutes later, with Karen glaring at us the whole time. I go pay the bill and as we are walking out of the restaurant, we pass near Karen's table. I call out to Jimmy in perfect English, with no accent, while smiling and I give him a wave. Zarif, hey buddy, I hope you enjoy your dinner. Have a good night. Karen's eyes bulge as she screams. Karen, I knew it. See? They know English. She tried to stand up suddenly, but instead ended up falling over backwards in her seat. My wife and I left the restaurant laughing before she could do anything else. I would love to use my 6 years of French in school for that purpose, but all I remember is le baguette de la boulangerie. Edit, if one more person tells me it's la baguette, I'll find 10 of these beautiful long breads and shove them straight into your surrendering han hole. Don't get me wrong, I want to be corrected when wrong, but it stopped being helpful after the first 10 times. What was funny was that I started to forget my French as I was learning Japanese. It was like Japanese was replacing French in my brain. That's why I don't use French anymore. When a game lets you change the language during a cutscene. Makes me sad I forgot most German and Spanish. Eating with my hands is one of the things I enjoyed most. While living in other countries, you connect with your food on a different level. Giving people hell in other languages is also fun, but use it with care. You never know who's listening. Walked home drunk in Ireland once singing a Zulu work chant and had someone shout at me out a window to shut up in perfect Zulu. As an Arab polyglot, this is so satisfying to read. The part where you brought Arabic in just killed me. Thanks for such a funny story. I never get my weekend time for myself. I, 24F, am a working woman living with my parents, due to both health issues as well as high rent prices. We're Indian, so it's also a social expectation to stay at home with parents unless your job is in a different city. My parents expect me to sacrifice my weekend time and vacation time for them. They keep making plans, including me automatically, putting me in the spot about having to apologize to people. I don't get a lot of free time with my work. My work is stressful and weekend is the only time I get to relax, but they accept invites on my behalf for events, trips, etc. Even without checking my availability. Today I was planning to relax, but my parents said their friends are coming over. Tomorrow there's a wedding engagement to attend that I am expected to be at, no questions asked. I had already discounted one weekend day for this event, but when they told me their friends would come over today and would be staying tonight, I panicked. They're a loud bunch and very annoying, asking personal questions, body shaming, etc. etc. My mom said we have to go over to the wedding house before the day of the engagement also. I declined, saying my entire weekend would be gone if I do that. I want some time for myself. I'm not even close with the bride and groom, just my parents are friends with their parents. My mom got mad at me saying that I'm being unsocial. I told her I meet my friends and have enough of a social life with that. She said I have to be social with people their age too, which makes no sense. I'm not forcing her to spend time with my friends. In the end, she just walked away saying she doesn't want to argue, but now I feel like shit about myself. Every single time there's such an argument, I know I'm just standing up for myself, but every time I do this, my weekend gets ruined anyway. I know if I move out they'll take me more seriously, but it's really not something I can afford to do. You already know that you need to move out and make your own decisions. You probably need to coordinate a roommate situation to make moving out more affordable. Best of luck. Family expectations are as such a heavy burden. Sadly, daughters feel this way more than sons. I agree with the other commenter. Find a roommate and look at your friends first. Important thing is to pick one that won't be entitled as well. Until you move out, it might be good to start lying or stretching the truth. People coming over you might not be able to do much about, but going other places you can. Say you have a prior engagement. Work is starting to require some weekend/evening hours, you're meeting up with friends, volunteering, etc. Whatever they'd believe/accept the easiest. Keep it as vague as possible, work up to no details. You don't owe them your time or explanation. I would start making weekend plans that include my parents. Then when they refuse to engage in my plans, I'd throw it back in their faces that they're doing the same thing to me. I am an adult with my own life, then tell them I'm about to move out so I can have some freedom. Then I'd laugh when watching their Pikachu faces. Entitled parent thinks her kids deserve the playground and gets mad when we don't cooperate. This happened a while ago when I was about 12. I was hanging out at a playground with a group of friends all around the ages of 10 to 13. There was a small tunnel in an area that not too many people were at, around 3 to 4 kids were there, not including us, that we decided to crawl into and just be in. Whenever we saw a kid that wanted to get through, we all moved to one side so they could. The parent, who I will call Karen for the sake of a readable story, decided that we were being too disruptive, which I guess we kind of were, but we didn't mean to. The first out of 3 encounters started with her walking into the park after us and almost screaming at us to get out. Didn't talk to us about it or anything like that. Just started off by screaming. We didn't listen at first, but caved in eventually and moved to another corner. We stood there for about 5 minutes talking, and Karen came over again to complain about how we were making her kids uncomfortable. There was no reasoning behind what she said, because all we were doing was standing in a corner away from her kids, and there was nobody else in the playground area, so she wasn't talking on behalf of anybody's kids. We moved to a different tunnel, and about 3 minutes later she is back to talk to us again about how we were being disrespectful to her and her kids. At this point, I refused to cooperate with her as she was following us around, shaming us. I call my dad, who was at the picnic area kind of close to us, so he can listen into the conversation, but decide to tell him I am hanging up to record. Unfortunately, I don't have footage of her talking. I only got her walking away with her kids, telling them something about how those mean boys wouldn't share the playground and they were going somewhere else, while looking back at us and glaring. That was the story going around all of our families for the next couple days. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. It's a public park, you were just hanging out. It's as much yours as it is hers. The only time I get annoyed is when they are teenagers hanging out, taking up big portions of the play sets. Like, I don't have an issue of them being teens. And they can obviously still play if they want. I never confront them and just tell my kid to play around them. But there's been times when there's teens not only just sitting all over the playset, but not even trying to be safe with their words. That's when it gets annoying. Especially when there's plenty of better areas in the park that's better suited for sitting and hanging out with friends. But yeah, I hate it when other people feel like they own the public space and try to shoo away others who are not actually causing trouble. I don't understand Karens. They don't want teenagers in parks, but get super pissed off when teenagers are just hanging outside stores. I do get annoyed when an older kid or teen sits on the swings and doesn't swing while they sit there and play with their cell phones while little kids are waiting their turn. Sit on a bench if that's what you're doing. When I was a kid and I got uncomfortable too much, I was told to stop doing what made me uncomfortable or we can go home. There was no other option. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.